Your main man returns with might and magic for your mind. But before I get started, let me give a shout out to my boys in Orange. We talk about big money, about 19, about number 1, 2, and 3, the defective model. We're talking about Thunderfoot the Dwarf. If you understand about Big Country, there you are. And everybody else out there, you understand who I'm talking to or what I'm talking about. Now, your main man hadn't talked to you in some time, baby, if you will. Clubbering and slobber knocking about some professional wrestling, but I have been looking at some professional wrestling, not a lot, not like I used to, but there's one guy out there, this guy Bray Wyatt, who really impresses me, son of Mike Rotunda, nephew of Kendall Windham, of Barry Windham, grandson of legendary Blackjack Mulligan. Fortunately, no relation to Blackjack Lanza, but this guy there with the Wyatt family, really impressive. I love their intro with the bullseye lantern. Really an excellent deal. It is a really phenomenal. The guy's wrestling, the psychology, the whole world's in his hands. I see that guy getting to be a monster face push very soon. Does an excellent job as a heel. I was shocked that they at WrestleMania led the very untalented John Cena. I'm sure I'm gonna get like one hater on that. Defeat him, but all to say that man is very talented, very interesting, very entertaining. And I've actually started kind of watching WWE again simply because of that guy. But I see the matches are better. They're slower pace. They put more into the matches. They're not, and they seem to be building the storylines and angles slower, which is always a good thing. But you're not here to talk about pro wrestling, baby. But you know there will be some. What we're talking about today is divine intervention. Now, it's very important to understand in a fantasy world, in your typical fantasy world, in your Forgotten Realms, you understand, in your Kryn, or in your Kovega Thale, the gods, divinities themselves are very, very much real, and they interact with the world in ways they walk and trod upon that same soil that man doth walk upon. You understand what I'm talking about, baby? So, it's important to keep that in mind at all times with thinking about these gods, these divinities, how they interact, what they are, their ways, their machinations. The fact that they might show up and it's a hot tag team with your player character formula. There are loads of examples in many role-playing games, in many worlds of gods where we just see sort of things. And in classical mythology, there's tons of times where Zeus comes down and works and deals and interacts with people, where he sponsors heroes. Where he's not just sitting back there, he's involved. He's hands-on. And we see that from many of the gods, from many of the mythological cycles. And I'm not going to spend like 40 minutes going through that, but read your mythology and learn about them. Gods aren't just these sort of aloof entities. And even if you read the Old Testament and the Bible, Jehovah is interacting with his favorites, with these individuals of importance. And guess who are people that are important? Well, that's your player characters. Your player characters are the man under the spotlight. Show them that, give them their acclaim, give them their proper due and due title, as is their necessity and need. So what I'm saying is involve and interact your gods with the players, particularly if the players are playing piously, if they're making sacrifices, if they're giving what the gods need, what the gods want. The players themselves are they're fairly important pieces on that cosmic chessboard, at least in terms of the rum and ruck of humanity. They should stand out in one way or another. They should be a spotlight. Remember, these are the stars of the movie. So, when you have the gods, and I know I talk a lot about gods because I think they're so important. They're really the framework. That's who made the world. In fact, the world itself might be a god, as might the cosmos, the heavens, the stars, each star, the moon, the sun. All these things might be gods or dragons or angels or divine creatures of various form, of various strength and potency. And that's important for the players to really be able to bring across that, to grasp that in their mind. These aren't necessarily things that are in no way involved. And not to say you can't have a fantasy world that is the case. But that's in itself a very easy thing to do. But when you bring across and manifest the gods, when players are working a certain way, and you could have a god, even a bad god, like a Cyric, show up and start tempting them. And then, it's once they start seeing while they're getting dragged down that dark spiraling path, do they resist or do they fall? And it can tell very, very interesting stories when a character becomes entertained and interested by an evil god like a Cyric or a Bane or someone like that who can interact. Particularly in a world like that where you have a Cyric or Bane who are both versions of apotheosis. They are creatures of flesh and blood, both human in that case, who rose to the divine. And that can tell a very interesting story there because they have a greater connection, a better understanding of what it is to have been human. Because they, at one time, were looking top up instead of top down, as is the one and custom of a god to do. So when you have that apotheosis, you have that ascendant, you have a different story, a different feeling, a different kind of connection. And you get in there and you can really run some interesting stories. And you have, like a Sarek show up and like, yes, my friend, well, I believe that we will, that's a very good idea you have. I think we should see that for fruition. So, when you bring a character like that in and you interact with the players and you show them, or the players making that particular sacrifice. For example, one of the games I do run, my friend Kevin, in fact, we even played a game the other night, his character Valorian the Barbarian, a real silent chaser of a guy, if you guys get that reference. When the arc of his story, of his character, the character became like a very, I don't want to say a staunch worshiper, because that really wouldn't be very descriptive of the character, but the character pays worship, pays tithes, pays dividends, if you will, to Umberly, the bitch queen, the goddess of the unforgiving sea. And he constantly pays sacrifices of both gold and blood into the sea, into that deep vaulted ocean down below. And then, he's got that relationship, and then some things happen. Some omens are shown, and we kind of gradually build that storyline of the oceans, and there's sort of like the small servitors, and you build that up, when he's making his sacrifices, when he's doing his things. You have an interesting, because you have a god ascendant that's limited like Aquaman, you understand, who can only be helping you when you're and to some degree it's not like, oh yes, huge bonuses and help. No, it's small things, subtle things. I think things that mean something. I think things that can have a good cinematic yield. For example, he's on the gate of Baldur's Gate, up on top of it, and to me the gate of Baldur's Gate is about 10 foot wide, is the way I always pull it, about 45 foot high. About 45 foot high. When I get the marbles under my mouth, I'll say like seashells in the mouth. Seashell by the seashore. So that's the way I do it. It's 45 foot tall, about 10 foot wide. You have the flaming fists going around the top that are on duty, patrolling the wall. And I have my Baldur's Gate wall is made of granite. So these are all fairly unimportant details for what we're talking about. He's fighting these priests of Bane after having a big conflict with some priest of Bane, and two of them eventually get up on the wall and they're fighting him. And he's a barbarian, running around with, I don't know, maybe leather or no armor at all on, but his character can swim really well. As again, remember, he's got the whole deal with Umberly. He's got maximum ranks of swimming, maximum allowable, and he's got like a 20 strength, which I think 21. I'm sure people out there are like, 21, who cares? We're playing like 3 and 5 D&D, but that's a big deal in a game I run. If you have a 21 in a stat, and you're going to get your proper due. You're going to get credentials off that. You don't need some stat that's like a 40 or something. Sometimes I see stuff like that, and when a ball of characters just have to toss them off someone's head to ding, like there, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. But a 21, that's a tremendous stat, and you should play over the stats and put them over. And when you give authority and credentials, people won't necessarily think the stats had to be enormous. I mean, even at 18, even at 15. They should be given like credentials. Oh, you have 15 charisma. Oh, you have a 15 wisdom. Oh, you have 15 strength. Okay, you're gonna get some play out of that. And you should. And you should give players some play off those sort of stats when you're out there in the game. And then they're gonna be less stat hungry, because if all they have is a modifier, even a 50, they can see you have a 50 in a stat. What difference does it make if your game master not gonna put it over? If the other players aren't gonna put it over, put things over, put them in their place, make them mean something. And the more you make something mean, the more you can do with less, and the more cool everything's gonna be. So that's always something, I bang the drum over and over again, screaming barbarically into that frozen northern wind. Now, so when you have that god, when you have even the slightest thing, so he's there, and this is all dice rolled out. He puts his back right to the edge against the water. And the two priests that I have, they're all coming up like towards him. They get the morning stars, and they're taunting him, and he's taunting them back. And I think one of you tries to cast a spell at him, or they're buffing themselves up with spells or whatever. So they're about to jack him up, and they have like a couple crossbowmen on the ground, two ready to support him, and had already hit Valorian a few times. So I'm just like, and they were both high level too. They were definitely an encounter I did not expected would turn into the level of violence. But I was like, all right, well, this is what he did, so these are the consequences he will reap. Sure enough, my dude tumbles past them. I think his tumbling was high enough to avoid one other attack's opportunity. The other one got an attack opportunity and missed or hit him, maybe even hit him. But it wasn't enough damage to put him away. Barbarians do have a lot of hit points. And he turns around. Both of them, of course, turn around and face him. They're back to the wall now. Boom! Valorian is the double clothesline. Sends all three of them into the depths of Umberly. He's got a maximum swimming plus a +5 bonus for strength plus all this and whatever. And he's tight with Umberly. I said, all right, well, he's wearing either leather or no armor at all. They're both wearing plate mail. That's clearly described. The plate mail or field plate that was black. It's with symbols of bay. They have capes. They have all this stuff. They're like, these guys are not going to get anything but a huge number of penalties to a diving check. And I was like, a lot of people back then, they didn't have YMCAs. A lot of people cannot swim in fantasy worlds. They could not swim in the past. Even a lot of sailors couldn't swim. It was just the way it was. You didn't have people that would teach you these sort of things. So, all three of them go over. He makes a roll, of course, is going to be a natural 19. And I'm like, oh, okay. He rolls a 19 on a die plus, what is like a +13 bonus. You can't jack that. Not by any stretch. I roll a 1 and a 3 for those two guys. So one of them falls, bam, with a 1, and he doesn't even hit the water. He's like right on like the rock jetty stretching out of Baldur's Gate. And the other guy hits the water, and he's like trying to fight, trying to swim, but he's like half knocked out anyway. He just fell nearly 50 feet, hits the water in plate mail, and it's a night too. And Valorian's like swimming there, trying to. She's coming up, and I really described the whole thing. They hit the water, the bubbles coming up, the moonlight trickling down overhead, the dark shapes, the splashes, and so forth. And when he comes up, there's a wave that washes up onto the top of the wave. You can see sort of a face of humanoid sort of entity that comes up, and the other guy's there. He's in the plate mail, and we had him. He's a cameo by Arn Anderson of the Four Horsemen, if you will, the Four Horsemen of Bane, and this figure sort of undie-like. Slides up a minor spiritual servitor of Umberly and grabs a hold of him and starts pulling him down. He's like, no, and he just gets drowned. And Valorian's like, sacrifice to Umberly, And it was a really cool scene. Bathed, painted in the moonlight and the stars above and the black canopy of Shar over the aggressive waves. And then, the waves were aggressive at first, right? And then everything calm. Completely calm. And I do other scenes like that at times when he would come out and he'd go on the beach for some kind of omen or something, and he would prayed all night one time and passed out, and he wakes up and the beach is covered in seashells, all these kind of seashells, and there's a bunch of different things you do, small little things. It's not like you had to give somebody a bonus to their stats or a bonus to a hit roll or something. You could just small, subtle, interesting things, omens. And you can bring it home, and then his character's always putting things over. So he's like, when he's at problems, you start looking at water, but then he gets always like, oh, but I just found a lake, and a lake isn't any good. He's like, I have the ocean, and this is different. And his character's a barbarian with a 7 wisdom, so he has trouble putting everything together. But he makes those sacrifices of blood. He makes those sacrifices of money, of all sorts of things, and it really helps tell an interesting story, gives a character a whole additional dimension when you bring into the god. So. When you, as a game master, have a player who's really pious, reward them. With the Ring of Fire, we have the piety system. We actually have an academic, a part of the game that is invested to tracking your piety, to tracking how you are relating to your divinity, how you're making your sacrifices, how you're obeying the tenets, how you're practicing the dogma of your faith. And those are very important things to do, and you should be rewarded for those sort of things. Because they make the game fun, they make the game more interesting, they make the game more entertaining for all involved, and certainly for a game master. So I think that's something very important for you as a game master, as a dungeon master, as a flame tender, as a keeper, as a cryptozoologist, or whatever the hell you want to be today behind your screen, or view me with no screen at all, because we do fly screenless. We fly pretty much on tables too. It might be a TV tray or two set up. That's about it, that collective, ethereal shared space, that gaming space. That beautiful space that we have together. For me, that's what it's all about, baby. You understand? So, make your gods mean something. Make them special. Make them important. Make that focal point. Get it over and get your players invested. Get them going to the temples, interacting with the clergy, get them proselytizing, get them engaged in philosophical debates, religion to religion with each other, and have some reward. You know, the smallest thing, if it's the god of rain, and all of a sudden it's raining now, they're like, oh yes, and now you see the power of my God, and he has made it rain at your God. You know, you can just bring it across in a lot of different ways, but bring them in there. Let the gods appear from time to time to interact. And that can be a really interesting experience. And gods themselves aren't very hard to roleplay, because I'll tell you right there what their portfolios and domains are. If your god's a liar, make him a liar. You know, and it doesn't mean he has to sit there and lie all the time, because it's not really what a liar does. Think about a person you know that's a liar and put that part of him in there. And then think about someone you know that's a tyrant or an autocrat and put that in there. Or, you know, if they're a booming maniac of thunder, I think you could imagine maybe someone who might remind you of a sonic boom of imagination. So bring that, infuse those elements, and play that character hard. Give them a voice, give them a scene, get them involved in the characters, but don't have them do the character's work. That's not what the gods did anyway. The gods made you do work. The gods didn't go do your work for you. They went, oh hell no, you'll do the work for me. And you did, and you saw the classical stories unfold like that, and put your characters in those sort of classical stories. Because after all, that's what fantasy stories are created off of. That is the world we live in. And these are the books we've been given, baby. You understand what I'm talking about? Well, till next time, this has been your main man. Woo! By God.